Hello. I think that fear is useless. I heard this statement many years ago and it struck me more profoundly than anything else I heard about fear. Things such as fear is an illusion, or fear is only in your mind, or fear is about the future, about the things that do not exist. But all those other facts about fear have not compelled me enough to change my experience with fear. But the statement fear is useless has captured me because of my way of thinking, and it has to do with how I look at the world. I try to see what things are useful and harmful, useful or useless. So there's two types of fears. One comes in a dangerous situation of a present moment, when there's a chance to get hurt or get injured or even lose your life. So you could call this instinctual fear or survival instinct. This fear is telling you to run away, to find safety, to survive. And other types of fears are psychological. They happen when we are safe at the present moment and think about horrible situation that might happen in the future. All those what if scenarios that we do not want to go through. This happens when we lose control of our imagination. We heard horrible stories and then we repeat it in our mind or come to some similar stories and just we are captured by our mind, and we do not realize this. We do not realize how much it limits us, how much it builds walls of fear around our freedom for us to do what we want to do. So why is fear useless? Because it gives no benefit. And you may think because of fear you could spot a dangerous situation more easily, or you could go through a dangerous situation with more carefulness, or not doing something stupid when going through a dangerous situation. But you do not need fear for that. You need common sense and honesty with yourself. You need to think about, be honest. Can I do this in this dangerous situation? If the answer is yes, you just do it. If it's no, you try to do your best, and that way you will minimize the damage. So think about a dangerous situation. For example, you may find yourself in a possible physical conflict, or you encounter a dangerous animal, or some kind of accident is happening. And there's a two-way we can go through such a situation, with fear or without fear. How do you feel with fear? Your body is probably tense, probably trembling. Your heart rate is raised, you're breathing unevenly. You might panic, you might stay frozen, or some other horrible thing may happen to you. You could not think clearly. So all your physical and mental capabilities are working less. And what happens when you go through a situation with fear? So the result will depend more on luck than on your real capabilities, because they are lowered, and your reflexes will play a big part, but they are also lowered because you're afraid. The other way to go the same situation is without fear. Now this way you're calm, your body is calm and ready, and you can do everything you can according to your capabilities. You think clearly. You can find the best way to go through this situation and minimize the damage or avoid it completely, because now you're reliant on your capabilities. So this explanation was enough for me to change my experience with fear. But it didn't happen immediately, because explanation cannot change your experience. Explanation needs to go through your experience. So you need to think about all of this I said. You need to experiment with it. And that's what I did. I didn't want to, even this all made sense to me, I didn't want to convince myself. I didn't want to believe in it. I wanted to think about it for months. I thought about many situations in my life that I went through. How would it be, with fear or without? I thought about new situations, about invented situations, about stories, about things I heard, about accidents that happened that day. I thought about it almost every day, and I even researched about fear more, see what other people think, many other people, what they think about this. And I even experimented. I put myself in few dangerous situations, not too dangerous. It was everything that I could handle. And after a few months, I could find nothing that would convince me that fear is not useless. So at that point, I actually knew that fear is useless. It's not just thinking. Now, my experience has changed. My relationship with fear has changed. And at this point, when I go to the dangerous situation, fear may come. It's not like I completely erased fear. Fear sometimes comes, but I remind myself that I know now that fear is useless and that I choose more effective way to being without fear. And I could really turn off the fear so simply. And then I would go through the situation without fear, with all my capabilities. And even after several years of all this experience, I still didn't find anything that could change my mind. And I even went through some very dangerous situation, even life-threatening situation, without any fear. Now at this point, I really know that fear is useless. And now I want to talk about some psychological fears and tell you how they are limiting us. So one of the biggest is fear of the opinions of others. What others think about us, what they think about how we look, what we do, what we should do or should not do. It's fear about judgment of others. So the biggest question here is, how important is freedom for you? Because this greatly limits your freedom. I think even more than any other fear. So you have to ask yourself, are you going to try many things and try to find your path in life to live more fully, more richly? Or you're gonna try only things that others deem appropriate? You can see how much the change is. And I think the path to personal growth is going through this without this fear. It's very important to lose this fear, because you will grow tremendously without it. Now, this doesn't mean that other opinions do not matter at this point. No. Other people may have very useful suggestion. Because they have different point of view. We just think about them and maybe we experiment with them, see how they translate in our experience. But now we are not pressured by those opinions. Now we can grow more freely. Another very common fear is fear of failure. So this one is actually very counterproductive when you realize what failure can give you. So failure will give you opportunity to learn, to improve, and that way come to success. I fail at something every day, and I want to fail. For me, failure is just experimentation. And I learn every day. I learn from those experiences. And actually, I'm having fun with that. I like to improvise a lot. So I experiment a lot and find new ways to do things. And I can see, you can all see, there's so much pressure in the world to succeed. And this is why we have so much fear of failure, because of pressure to succeed. But without failure, success would only come by accident or by luck. Without failure, there could not be progress. How could we research and discover new things without failure? So there's a lot more things to say about failure, and in my book I dedicated a whole chapter about failure. And I wrote also about fear, as well as objective truth, freedom, suffering, love, and how they are all connected. Now, next fear is fear of change. This is the big one. This is the big one because this fear usually stops us from doing something that we should do. But we do not do it because we are afraid of change. We are afraid to lose our comfort. We are afraid to lose our job or source of income, or we are afraid that with change a dangerous situation may come, or we are afraid to lose our reputation or influence. So change is one of the most important thing in life, because change is happening all the time, everywhere. Even if you think that some things do not change, they're still changing, just very slowly. Things are either going forward or backward, either growing or decaying. So this is one of the fundamental objective truths about life itself. So it's very important to accept this. A saying, go with the flow, is telling us to accept change. And fear of death goes into this category. Fear of death is actually fear of change. But in life, everything that has a beginning has an end, and we should try to accept that. And when we lose this fear, the less we are afraid of change and less we are afraid of death, the more we accept the inevitability of death, the less we are going to suffer, and more our life will be beautiful. So, don't you want a beautiful life? If so, you should think about change and death more often and try to accept as much as possible. Now, another fear is very interesting to me. I hear people saying they are afraid of God. And they're saying that in a positive way. So I do not understand this. My thinking is, are you being nice, compassionate, and useful to people around you? Just because you're afraid you will get punished by God for not doing that? I think better way is being nice and compassionate because of your love to God or your devotion to God. I think that's more effective, more productive, more beautiful way of doing things without fear. If you know more about this fear, let me know in the comment section. And another fear, which is very common, very popular these days, is called FOMO, fear of missing out. So missing out on some product or event that is very important to us. And this fear is very funny to me, because I see most of the people missing out on life all around them all the time. And yet this fear refers only to few products or events that are important to people. It's completely backwards, in my opinion. So all these fears, they are doing so much harm. Either we are doing things through fear and doing them less effectively, or we are choosing the wrong path because of the fear, or we are not doing something because we are afraid. And sometimes we could see a harmful change approaching, and yet we stay silent and do nothing. And this change happens, this harm happens. And it's in a part because of us, because we did nothing. Now, you could try to do something and this harmful change still comes. But this is not the point. The point is, now you tried, you did your best, you failed, it doesn't matter. You are now not the part of the problem. And more people, if they think about this, if more people start to be not the part of the problem, maybe some harmful changes could be stopped. That's all. These are my thoughts, fears. Are they not useless, all of them? Try to change my mind in comment section. Thank you for listening, and remember, we can do everything more effectively without fear.